I'm going to start by welcoming everyone here. We're very excited during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, to have our experts with us, resources to promote community safety, with Robi Schlaff and Maria Trusa, who you'll hear much more from in a few minutes. We cannot do these programs without generous funding, and we are really grateful to Westchester County, the Westchester County Board of Legislators, and Cuddy and Fader for supporting this initiative and the series and the next program as well. And we are thankful to our sponsors overall for helping NPW deliver the programs and the resources to the community that we need to share with you and that we want to share with you to make our community safer, better, and more cohesive. So again, a big shout out to Cuddy and Fader and to all of our sponsors as well. I'm going to start with just some brief words. You know, as I said before, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I had the pleasure of seeing how well the nonprofit sector and government collaborate to address our most important social issues at a service that honored people who have lost their lives to domestic violence and the people that work in this field to support women and children and men who are victims and survivors of domestic violence. And that was again, at a service that was held by Westchester County a few weeks ago. And it really showed how important Domestic Violence Awareness Month is. The statistics are staggering. Domestic violence remains a prevalent and serious public health crisis. Every year, over 12 million women and men in the US experience physical violence, rape, or stalking at the hands of an intimate partner. Equally difficult, but essential to address, and something we don't like to talk about, is child sexual abuse. 1 in 5 children are victims of sexual abuse every year. Today, we are honored to have with us 2 esteemed guests, Robi Schlaff, as I said, the director of the Westchester County Office for Women, and Maria Trusa, who is the founder of Yo Digo No Mas, I Say No More. Following their presentations, we will open the Zoom for questions. But before I begin, I am so pleased to welcome and introduce Tanika Natal, Director of HR and Administration at Cuddy and Fader. She's going to give some brief opening remarks, and we are really thankful to have businesses that recognize how important these initiatives are and how important it is for all of us to work together to make our workplaces and communities better. So Tanika, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Greetings to all of our listeners. Jan, I'd like to thank you, Amy, and Suzanne for welcoming me here today. I really appreciate your kind introduction, and I thank you for the opportunity for Cuddy and Fader to highlight its support of nonprofit Westchester and its initiative to raise awareness, provide resources, and foster a culture that empowers those affected by domestic violence. As Cuddy and Fader's HR representative, it is extremely important for our firm to stand in solidarity and extend resources, in particular to those who are suffering in silence.
You can see everybody in attendance.
Thank you, Robi and Maria, for your commitment, your support, expertise, and guidance. Cuddy and Fader joins NPW in its unwavering support and compassion to those affected by domestic violence and hopes that this informational session will have an influence on reclaiming lives. We wish for your peace and your safety. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really beautiful. I appreciate that. Robi is going to start, then we're going to go to Maria. We will have plenty of time for questions and answers. Please put any questions you have in the chat. Amy and Suzanne and I are going to monitor those questions and hopefully get to them. And if not, we will get you the answers that you need. So, Robbie, the Zoom is now yours.
So the Office for Women is a Westchester County agency. We are the only one in the country. It was started in 1980 when a bunch of Westchester women, just like the folks who started the nonprofits that are part of NPW, realized that there was a need because folks weren't taking domestic violence seriously enough, and they started this office. It is a service provider to victims. We have offices in all 3 family courts in Yonkers, White Plains, and in New Rochelle, where we are co-located with legal services. Probation is there, and they handle most of the petitions for orders of protection. And we coordinate all of the domestic violence and sexual assault policy for the county. That's great. Thank you. So go to number 2. So these are some of the services that we do. It's called the Office for Women. We help everyone. We are known to help everyone. We call ourselves the Office of Last Resort because when people don't know how to call, they just call us, and we always answer the phone, as some of you know. If you go to slide 3. There's no way for me to do it, right?
No.
Okay.
We're
So
on slide
I think Jan talked about this, and Jan talked about the horrific numbers for intimate partner violence. And a week and a half ago, a retired NYPD detective killed his wife with 3 children at home on the Eastchester Tuckahoe border. This is the 3rd police officer in Westchester County that killed family members. Bronxville, he killed his whole family in Rockland. This guy killed his wife. And there was an officer who was a White Plains cop who killed his 2 daughters, 3 dogs, and himself in White Plains. It is way too prevalent. It's way too prevalent in Westchester County. We have the horrible distinction of having more children killed in domestic violence cases than all but 2 counties in the state of New York, including the city of New York. So the statistics are really bad. What we did in Westchester is when we learned of these things, we actually created a high-risk team, which is a model. It's like, don't even bother with the slides. We started a high-risk team because we wanted to figure out a better way to address the lethality. I'll go back to this at the end, the New York State employers. The high-risk team is way down in the series. This is a class of me and Jan. So we decided to act, like Jan said, that the cooperation and the collaboration in Westchester is unique. And we started a high-risk team in 2017, working with the district attorney's office, and she heard them speak about this, and all the non-residential domestic violence service providers to train police into doing trauma-informed investigating when they respond to domestic violence incidents. And what they do, which is unique and really works well, is they call a trained advocate from the scene, from the actual scene of response, to get somebody help immediately. You know, of course, they separate the offender and the person that is harmed. They have the person, the victim, speak directly with an advocate, and we get immediate resources, which are provided by your members, by the wonderful not-for-profits who provide these resources. We get them immediately to a victim. The issue of employers and domestic violence are very important first I want to talk about why it's important, then we'll go into some of the responsibilities. If you are watching The Lincoln Lawyer, or if you read murder mysteries, or if you just know this, when someone is stalking someone, when someone has it in their hearts and minds that they want to hurt someone, they're going to go to the most obvious place where they can find someone. And a workplace and a routine is something that an offender, someone who wants to harm another person, can easily identify. So it doesn't matter whether you're living together or living apart, if the abuser knows that someone is leaving for work, going to work at a certain time each day, where they go to lunch, and what time they leave, that's a very easy place to attack them. And in Westchester County government, I work together with HR, and Tanika, I would love to work with you and we work with any other organization about this. We talk about workplace safety when you have a domestic violence victim who is an employee. Some of the things are just common sense. Change their hours, have them park in a different place, see if there is someone who can accompany them to their car, or if they are concerned. Now, you never put yourself in danger or any of the other employees in danger. We work very closely with all 42 police departments within Westchester County. And we have liaisons who work with us. We can help you with that if you need to know the right person to call, depending upon the jurisdiction. But they should be alerted to see whether a criminal order of protection or a family court order of protection is warranted. So we have obligations under New York state law when it comes to domestic violence. And these are things you must do. If someone comes to you and you believe, if they have a credible claim that they are a victim of domestic violence, you have certain obligations and accommodations that you are required by law to give them. So the confidentiality, so some of them are just, what you have to do, but confidentiality and documentation are things to really think about. So confidentiality is really important, especially if the abuser is someone who knows people within your organization. It's really, really, really important for the safety of everyone that you keep things confidential. And in terms of documentation, every organization likely has their own policy regarding that. We start by believing, that's our credo in our office. And if someone says that they are being harmed by an intimate partner, we believe them. If it turns out not to be accurate, then we go on from there. Can you go to the next slide, Jan? So you can't terminate somebody's employment because they are a victim of domestic violence. Okay? What you do want to have is you want to have a copy of the order of protection at your workplace. You want to make sure that the employee always has that on her or him. I always say to people, just like when you're going to do this Alzheimer's and other legal advice clinics, an order of protection, a will, a legal document doesn't do you a lot of good if nobody knows where it is. So I always say scan it, keep it on your person, and also send it to someone who is a trusted person who you can call upon to get it when they need it. All right, the next slide, LGBTQ. Domestic violence is a more complicated and difficult process for same-sex couples. Same-sex couples suffer domestic violence as much as anyone else, they are more reluctant to come forward with their cases. Oh, this is great. Keep going. Go to slide 9. I think we went through these, yeah. So we get about 13,000 now in 2022, 13,000 reports of domestic violence. The definition of domestic violence really has to do with, you can go to the next one, what is domestic violence? So domestic violence is a terrible name for it because it's really a pattern of coercive control. We call it domestic terrorism, insidious behavior. It's about fear that if you don't comply with what someone who you are close to wants you to do, that there will be certain repercussions. Go to the next one. Actually, we should go to 13. I don't know how much time I have. Types of abuse. You can go to 12. I really apologize that we're doing it this way. So we think of physical abuse, but these are some of the physical abuse can be sexual, can be assault, but there's also physical harm without violence. And maybe when you have the conversation about Alzheimer's and dementia, folks with Alzheimer's and dementia, folks who have disabilities, elder folks can have physical harm without violence, which is withholding food, water, medications. Story where somebody was in a wheelchair and the abuser, who actually happened to be a child of that person, kept that person just out of arm's distance from the food. It's torture. It's basic torture. Emotional abuse, I think that everybody has seen it. Every single person has seen somebody putting somebody else down, disparaging comments, telling someone they're not worth anything and making them feel helpless and unworthy. Gaslighting is something that is from an old Hitchcock movie, and it is done all the time with victims of domestic violence. No, I never said that. No, I didn't do that. No, you must be making it up. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who make decisions about custody and other court matters believe the manipulating abuser. Cyber stalking, we could do a whole hour on cyber stalking. That is now in every single domestic violence case we have cyber abuse and cyber stalking. And then we added litigation to this because people who are abusers and are losing power and control, they just keep coming back to court to continue that power and control over the person they have abused. Go to the next slide. I want to, hopefully it's so one of the things that folks always say, and I'm going to do do's and don'ts in a minute because I don't know how much time I have left, Jan. How am I doing? 5? Yeah, she's talking, but I can't, she's muted, so it doesn't matter.
You can go 10 minutes.
Okay, so one of the things that I want to talk about, and we do have a slide on do's and don'ts. I've been doing this for more than 35 years, and we get these cases that come into the office, and you're like, why doesn't she leave? It's generally the woman. And why doesn't she leave? It's so frustrating. Why is she still with him? And there are a host of reasons why people stay together. And I don't even say why doesn't she leave? I just say, why are these two still together? I would say the number one reason is fear. I think that it's right there, anxiety and fear, that survivors are survivors because they know that if they act differently, they will suffer great harm. People have told us that They were concerned not only for their own safety, because if you forecast to someone that you want to leave, that is the most likely time you will be killed. We're talking about power and control, and when somebody thinks they are losing their control over another human being, they will act out. And that is what we believe was the case in those 3 cases that I talked about with the cops that killed their spouses and families, that they were all facing separation or divorce. Threats against the children. A survivor who trains with us was in a 20-year marriage. She didn't leave because she was afraid that the courts would give her ex visitation or joint custody. And she was afraid that he would kill the children to get back at her. The courts and child welfare have not traditionally been very understanding of the dynamics of domestic violence. And so if there are support groups, or if you hear from someone, don't speak out because you're going to suffer as the person who is already suffering, then you're not going to speak out. And then the things that you would think about, whether you're an immigrant victim, whether you are someone who is the non-moneyed spouse, but losing your house and all your means of taking care of your children, financial support, potentially losing your employment because of having to go to court, because family courts are notorious for not scheduling cases consecutively. So having to take off a day now, and then next week on a Wednesday, and the week after on a Thursday, and then the week after another day, people lose their jobs because of this. So there are many reasons why these 2 are still together. What I'd like to go into is the do's and don'ts, which you're going to have to find, Jan. It's towards the end. Do's and don'ts if somebody tells you that they are a victim of domestic violence. And we can also share this PowerPoint. I kept the whole thing because I didn't know if you wanted to share it. This goes through red flags. It goes through the creation of our domestic violence high-risk team, the screenings that we do. We have a bunch of stuff on strangulation. Strangulation is occurs in about 53% of our cases, and it's very hard to see the physical forensics of strangulation. 50% of the strangulation victims do not show any marks at all, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to suffer from traumatic brain injury or actually a collapsed carotid and die. So what to do and not to do. And this stuff, I have to say, I know this is not a fun topic. Neither of the topics we're talking about today are easy, but they're real. And the violence against women is real, and we see it every day here. So obviously you want to offer support and concern and validate their experience. Most important, call me, call my sister's place, Hope Store, Putnam Northern Westchester, Victims Assistance Services. Call an agency, a not-for-profit or government that is expert in this for safety planning and for other services. Do not give them advice other than telling them to call a service provider. That's the only advice. And if they're unsafe, that's a whole different story. The police or we can help with safety planning. Never, never, never suggest they leave their partner unless there has been adequate safety planning. We call it avoiding forecasting. I had a case once where someone told her husband that she was, divorcing him, taking the kids, and he kidnapped the kids, and the cases that I talked about, the homicides in Westchester County, I think that every single one of them was when someone said they were going to separate. Now, the next one is funny because I am a lawyer by training, but I don't practice in this capacity. So remind people that we have a lot of free legal services in Westchester County. We are one of the few counties in the state, outside of New York City, that has legal services available. All the resources are on our Office for Women website. And then again, don't give advice. Go to the next one. So we didn't go through all the demographics, but I think that people probably are aware that anyone can be a victim and anyone can be an abuser. And the psychological and emotional abuse may be worse than the physical, so don't discount that. Always express concern and connect people to services. And we are really your resource. You can call me anytime just to run something by me. We do that all the time. We have a DV workplace policy in the county. I would hope, and Tanika, you can tell me whether you have one. I would hope that all of you do have a DV workplace policy and that people are aware of that so they know that they will be supported if they need it. And Jan, thank you for doing my slide.
My pleasure. Robbie, so we will send out various resources to everybody on this Zoom, including your website, but I do see other providers on. I see Cindy Canisher from Pace Women's Justice Center. We have Maria on. Anyone that wants to share the resources of their organization, please let me know and we will get it out, because Westchester is very resource rich. So we will share the PowerPoint and we will share any information that's out there from our providers as well. And I thank you for cramming this into 20 minutes. I have myself gone through the entire training. It's really amazing. I do encourage organizations, businesses, nonprofits to schedule the training. It's really, really a tremendous use of time, a really important use of time. So I am now going to switch over to Maria Trusa, who I've really had the honor of getting to know over the past few months and who has so boldly brought the issue of child sexual abuse to our community, to our country. And welcome, Maria, and please unmute yourself and share with us
Thank you.
your
Jen.
organization does and what you do and what you want our community to know.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here with all of you. I was thinking as I was getting ready to speak with you, because I tell my story, and I tell the story because unfortunately not many people have done, a lot of work to get to the place where they can tell the story without re-traumatizing themselves and feeling so much pain. But ironically, I've been healing for about 40 years and done a lot of work on healing and continue to do the work, because healing is something that we're going to be doing until the day we die. If we don't continue to heal, then we don't continue to evolve into the best version of ourselves. And I was thinking of the book, The Body Keeps the Score. I'm sure many of you have probably heard of this book. Is a book that talks about, child abuse is one of the most horrific crimes that exist. And unfortunately, is one that is a silent pandemic. We do not speak about sexual abuse of children. It is hard for people to even, I remember when I first started talking about in building the movement, even my social media team had it, I had child sexual abuse. They did not want me to use that phrase, child sexual abuse, because it's so tight, so tight. These chains of sexual abuse of our children are so tight because the monster is in the house. So the monster that was in my house, it turned out to be my father. This is the man that is supposed to protect my light. And I talk about this divine light that we are all born with. It is the beauty of innocence. think about, when you were a child, like you had this wow factor, everything was wow. And you start creating and you get extremely creative with anything that it's near you. And when a child is sexually abused, that wow factor, that divine light gets diminished. My father actually turned off my light at the age of 9. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic, and my father, at the age of 9, in the middle of the night, was coming to take my little brother that was 4 years old from our home. My mom was in the United States trying to support the family. And my little brother was 4 years old, and my father came with a witchcraft man, el brujo, as we call him in Spanish. He was taking my little brother, and this is 50 years ago. And I can tell you that we think they would have sacrificed my little brother. So I took my little brother from my father's arm that night, and my father forced me to go.
Robbie's on she presented on this TV, what is it?
Can everybody mute themselves as Maria talks, please?
Yeah. So when my father left me with El Brujo in the middle of the night, he ended up forcing me to drink a bottle of whiskey. And at the age of 9, so I could have died just from the whiskey. It was something that actually turned out to be a gift, because I think if I would have experienced everything that I went through that night when he took me to a motel and brutally raped me, to the point where I had to have surgery and my right ovary got twisted in my fallopian tubes and I was losing my ovary. And at the age of 9, I can tell you that I wanted to die. If I could die, if I could kill myself, I know I would have done it. And I became this woman, this young girl, that completely, the light was turned off. I could not, no longer really play in the swing. All the joy was completely turned off from my life. And it was the man that was supposed to protect me. And it's a terrible story that really marked me for decades. Unfortunately, since I developed a complex of being worthless, I started to get into relationships that were toxic. My first one was at the age of 15. 16, I got married at the age of 17 to a Dominican man that abused me, raped me, and he was mentally torturing me. I felt worthless, and I chose worthless. And it took me so many years to get to the point where I decided that I wasn't worthless anymore. And I started writing my book, Yo Digo No Más. So it's in Spanish and English, it's in Amazon. And I can tell you that when I wrote the book, I didn't realize that there was a silent pandemic, because everybody was coming to me. And I had a time in Vermont where I have a home in Vermont, and I had these women that came, young women, 10 of them, and we were in the jacuzzi, and I started to tell them what my story was about. And they asked me as I was writing the book, and I told them, and they, one by one, 8 out of the 10 were sexually abused by somebody close to them. Grandfather, father, brother. The name Yo Digo No Más, it was from me screaming, Yo Digo No Más, I say no more. And I became obsessed with this mission, to the point that, I created the nonprofit, Yo Digo No Más, the movement that now it's, believe it or not, we've hit about 2 million people virtually throughout the world. 4 years of being obsessed with this mission, I gave the movement $1 million of my money my own money because I could no longer wake up and know that that innocence was being stolen from these children, and that we have to figure out a way to break these chains and break the silence, because the silence is what feeds the pandemic. It is a messy situation that affects every culture. There is no discrimination. It affects men, little boys, little girls. And over 93% of the abuse happens at home, and only 30% is estimated to be reported. I work with an organization, RAIN, and they do a lot of work in support of children that have been sexually abused, and they support the families as well. And when I started to do, I paid somebody to do actually a research of this topic and what is missing. There's hardly anything out there to support the children and to protect the children from being sexually abused. And this is something that they're abused before the age of 9. After 9, they're getting too old. And some of them start being abused at a very early age and are abused for years and years. And forever they're marked. And the light for many of them is estimated 80% of the population does not actually heal. So becoming obsessed to break the silence. We've had 3 walks in Yonkers. I have a talk show that has over 30 interviews and over 500,000 people that have watched them. Our website for Yo Digo No Más, we have Breaking the Silence, Educating to Prevent, and then How Do We Heal? And we're doing and adding more and more stuff. But if you go into our website, yodigonomas.com, or I Say No More, one thing that we are proud to say is that we get about 20,000 to 25,000 people that come and visit our website from all over the world. In our social media, including my social media, I have a video now that has reached close to 4 million people. Everything is going viral, which is like I said, I became obsessed. So I've done so many videos, so many interviews, all over the country, all over the world, actually, on this topic. There is so much work to be done. And I can tell you that educating right now, I'm working on master classes that are going to be in the website using AI. We're going to be able to bring this in different languages, because what we see is that the movement is not just a local movement, it is a worldwide movement. And the other thing that we're working on is on workshops that we're going to bring to start with the parents. If you go on our website, you see a parenting guide that we are going to be out of the parenting guide. We're creating these workshops that we're going to bring to the schools, organizations that have children, and start teaching the parents. Healing is something that is critical. And I can tell you, I do healing work in my home in Vermont. They're very private retreats, and they're 4 days long. And my goal is to start bringing those retreats. And we're going to try one in December. We're going to bring it to New York and eventually be able to really bring it to the underserved community. I am extremely focused. If you go to my social media, my focus became the Latino community, because this is a community that unfortunately does not have a lot of resources. And we are very culturally sensitive, and also myself being a survivor and have gone through domestic violence, because I did go through that. My ex-husband tortured me mentally. He tried physically, but I have 4 brothers and they came to protect me. But this is a silent pandemic that we all need to unite. I always say that it's going to take an army to be able to break these chains, because they're really tied, because the monster is in the house. And I have mothers that their child have been abused by the husband, and they have love for the husband and love for the daughter. And it's very complex. So, but the first thing is that this needs to be a topic of conversation where people, even when I tell my story, a lot of people get triggered. And unless you feel the pain, and this is the reason I'm here sharing with you so openly, authentically, with all my heart, because in order for us to bring the change that we need, we need to feel the pain. We need to feel the pain. So you felt my pain, and it is very likely that then you will unite to become one of the people, one of the soldiers, as I call them, from the army of Judeo no Mas. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to shine light into the silent pandemic that is destroying so many lives that would end up being people that get abused and be in situations of domestic violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, so much. And obviously, we feel it's so important to shed a light both on domestic violence and really a form of domestic violence. I know there's a better word, but child sexual abuse. And there is a question, and the question is for you, Maria. Where and when did you start your healing process?
When my son was born, I was not ready to be a mom. I had just turned 20, and I can tell you that he was my mirror. He showed me how broken I was. I thought I had left my trauma behind, because you don't know what you don't know. You cannot see what you cannot see. So I can tell you that one night when my son would not stop crying and I was fully disconnected to him when he was born, and I saw that it was a boy, I immediately disconnected from him. I couldn't understand. I'm like, I'm a good person. How could I be so disconnected to my son? I had a hard time cleaning his penis. It was hard for me to touch him. So in the middle of the night, one night, I threw this child in the bed when he was 3 months old, and my son fell on the floor. It's another story that I say because it's hard for me to even say at this point. My son is 40 and we do healing retreats together. He is my pride and joy, my coach, unbelievable human being. But I started healing that night. I said, I don't know who this person was, but I'm going to make sure this person doesn't come back anymore, because I almost killed my son. And that started to accelerate. So I call him my accelerator, my biggest accelerator. That's when I started to heal. But I'm still healing, guys. Like I said, the healing continues. I'm still struggling with the love department in my life, I'm working on that. That's a priority now.
Well, thank you for being so honest. That's not easy. And for sharing.
Well, Jen, it's important to share this because there's so many we are all full of dark and light. And people that have committed crimes, people that do things to their children, I always say, what happened to them that they could disconnect from pain to that level? What happened to them? Oprah Winfrey, her last book is called What Happened to You? So pain, when you disconnect from your own pain, it is easier to cause pain on others, and because you're not feeling it. So for me to share that story is because I want people to know you're not alone. You're not alone. Sometimes you feel ugly. Sometimes you realize that you think you are this horrific human being, but you're not. You're somebody that just needs healing.
I'm gonna thank you for that again. There's a question, and before I give this question to both Robbie and Maria, one thing that we do pride ourselves on at Nonprofit Westchester and our agencies is the collaborative nature. No organization can do everything. So this question is particularly important because I know that there are some very good evidence-based, clinical, trauma-informed therapies out there in Westchester that are taking place, and we've made a lot of connections Maria and Robbie are both so open to meeting with anybody that can be a potential partner that they can learn from. So the question is, do you work with psychologists to support the mental health aspect of your work? And I think both of you can answer that. Why don't we start with Robbie, let Maria take a little bit of a breath
Thank
and level
Yeah.
for her.
Thank
Robbie,
you, Maria, for sharing your story, which I love hearing it because I love to see what you are today, and I think it gives so many people hope. So I think I would say that the mental health end of healing can take many forms. And what we say is when someone is in crisis, may not be the right time for them to be getting trauma assistance. They really need to take care of their essential needs, the Maslow hierarchy of needs. You know, you got to get yourself regulated before the therapy is going to work. What we find often works best with our clients is peer support groups. And I know Jackie's doing one. We have a group up in Northern Westchester, and I feel like we would definitely benefit from more survivor-led support groups. Yes, there is definitely a need for mental health assistance as well. And we do have great providers, WJCS, I saw somebody's on from there, and Family Ties. And we work with Tamaris Princey, who looks at the offender side of the psychology there. So yes, the answer is yes, 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 and in all different forms.
I think that's a recognition, a more recent recognition that advancing mental health doesn't always have to be clinical, although that aspect is very important as well in many cases. But there are many forms of healing, and taking a more holistic approach is important. But the question is, specifically, and Maria, maybe you can answer it, is do you work with psychologists?
So we are in the process now with the workshop that we're going to do. I do have psychologists that volunteer their time now, but it's more to create all of the work that needs to be created, all the educating. For example, I talked about the master classes that we're going to be doing virtually on our website. I have psychologists that are coming from different therapy, and there's a lot that's going to go in. But as far as what I do is I work with RAIN. So let's say somebody comes to me, and we get this all the time. We either recommend RAIN, WJCS as well. And that's what you were saying. I can't, we're not going to do it all. So we have to collaborate. And the other thing that I'm doing is, and Jen, you have been instrumental because you are connecting me to a lot of organizations that we can work together. One of the things that we're going to be doing is we're adding, we have a resource page in our website. So we're adding always different organizations so that we can say, go to the website and you can reach out to but I don't physically have psychologists that are working with me in the organization, Yo Digo No Más. We just make recommendations to other organizations.
And I think that's important. I mean, as we talk about ourselves as a sector, that if there are services out there that you can refer to, that's always a great option, not to have to repeat. But certainly, Maria, your services are informed by other experts.
Yep.
Are there any other questions? Robbie, I know there was some more stuff that you maybe wanted to share, but do you feel like you got through enough of what you wanted to get through?
What was the group thing? I think Cindy, I think that the most important thing is the resources. I know that Cindy put her Pace Women's Justice Center on there. I mean, we really have an incredible collaboration in Westchester County, and it ranges from criminal justice to the human services side of it. But we all work together, and we case conference, we meet with therapists sometimes when they are relevant to the case, and domestic violence service providers, and whoever is the relevant person in that particular case to work together to provide safety to the families. And a bunch of people are on. Randy, I saw, is on from DSS. We work with our partners in DSS, Community Mental Health, huge partners of ours. Office for People with Disabilities. So we'd like to expand it. I'm sorry, I'm going to miss the Alzheimer's and dementia talk, but I think that folks who are suffering those diseases are so vulnerable to mistreatment.
I have somebody actually texted me a question that wants to remain anonymous, but it's for you, Maria. Are there any particular general warning signs that you can see in a child, a young child who's being sexually abused or violated in some way?
I'm so glad you asked. You know, you try to cover as much as possible in a bit of time. I would recommend the parenting guide that we have because it gives you a list of the signs. But I'm going to tell you one thing. If you have a child that the behavior has changed, you need to get very curious. If you have a child that is wetting the bed out of the blue, that's a huge sign that something could be happening. The other thing is a child that I'm going to challenge you to do this. I know that it's hard for people to look into the eyes, like straight into the eyes, but always get used to looking at your child into the eyes. The eyes are the door to the soul. When the child is in light, their eyes are bright and they shine. You can see the light. When a child's eyes are sad and they have a hard time looking at you, something could be happening. The other thing is they start getting aggressive, or they start getting very sad and secluded, very quiet. So behind every behavior, there is a story. And we have to get curious on the story. I know this is something that I'm teaching with the Latino community because children don't have a voice. This is a cultural thing. And it's in many cultures, not just in the Latino culture, but I can tell you we are big offenders of taking the voice from the children. So if they want to tell you something and they're uncomfortable, get them comfortable. And start educating them. This is my dream, is that eventually there will be a curriculum that will be taught in school, because there's different ways of protecting your children and teaching them to protect themselves. Depending on the age, there are conversations that you could have with them. Part of what we do on the website, we put this information, but it's going to be part of the workshop that we're going to be providing, because I ask parents, wherever I go, so many, educated, non-educated, have you ever spoken to your child about sexual abuse? Most say, I don't even know how to start. We need to teach the children how to protect themselves, because the abuser is taking advantage of the fact that they do not know what they're doing. The children don't understand it because their brains are not equipped to understand that they are sexual abuse, whatever the different type of sexual abuse is. This is another thing that people have this perception that it has to be penetration. This is something that I talk about with my Latino community, because and all the people that come to me, many of them said, well, I wasn't really sexually abused because they just touched me, or they asked me to do things for them, or they put pornography and so that wasn't, it's like your story is so much more. No, that is something that, because they took and introduced in your little brain something that wasn't supposed to be introduced there, and you were not equipped to understand it, it affects you. I do these healing retreats, and I can tell you so many men and women that have been sexually abused, and the damage the damage that it gets done, and it becomes a transgenerational trauma. We pass it along to the next generation without understanding. And the other thing that I'm finding doing this healing work is that the abuser, when they were little and they were abused, at the age of 10, 11, 12, they go and they abuse their brother or sister or cousin. And now they're living with the guilt that they did this and they don't understand it. And they're looking at themselves as these ugly human beings. This is really, I mean, I do a lot of healing work every day for me, 2 hours every day, because if I don't, this is ugly. This is ugly. But we need to educate ourselves. And this is why, you know, when Jan asked me, everybody that asked me to speak, I go and speak, because we need to have these conversations. And I'm so grateful that, you know, I'm here with you.
And we are grateful too. So I'm going to start wrapping this up. We have a number of people on this Zoom and with different life experiences, but Robi, Maria, and I didn't prepare you for this question, but what is something everyone can do to try to help address? We know, again, the data is really, really troubling the more I read it, how women, children, boys, men are victims. And what can we do as a society and as individuals to help fight this, what we call a pandemic?
So Maria, you know the answer. It's yo digo no más.
No
Just
mas.
everybody has to say it. You got to be an upstander, not a bystander. When you
Yeah.
see it, you gotta say something. You gotta teach your children that it's not okay to hate and to disparage and to have control over other people, and get involved.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I like to say that I am the mother of forgiveness. The reason I have an amazing life. I really wake up looking for magic, and I shouldn't, because I've experienced so much trauma. That's not the only trauma that I've experienced. You know, my life continues to have darkness, but I still love my life. And the reason I can tell you that is because I have learned to forgive to live. And if we can concentrate on doing all the things of protecting, having the conversation, breaking the silence, believing in our children, a child comes to you, and this is something that I want to teach, because my God, there's so many people that have said, my mom did not believe me. Nobody wanted to believe them, because obviously it's somebody within the family. So the believing the children, a child is not equipped to understand that he or she has been sexually abused. So if a child is saying that he was touched, whatever it is, we need to believe the children. But the most important thing, even for all of you here, I can tell you, if you can start working on forgiving is for you. And to teach people that if you can detach in a healthy way, because I'm not saying I detached from my trauma, and it was very destructive, but it's more letting go of what happened to you and focusing on forgiving yourself, because many of the people that have been hurt, they have hurt others. So forgiveness, when you're able to forgive yourself, then you're able to forgive others, and then you're living the life that God meant for you to live. And or the spirit or whoever it is that you believe in. I believe in God, so for me is God. So forgive to live is my biggest message to all of you, to spread the forgiveness.
I think I'm going to leave it on that note. As I said, we have an abundance of resources in this county. I've been honored to work with, if you look in the chat, so many organizations that are really doing this amazingly difficult work, And we have such a great level of compassion and expertise and just wonderful people. I do want to call attention to the fact that Catherine Borgia indicated Westchester has a safe leave law that provides 5 days for court, lawyer consultation, moving in these cases. And we will send all the information out. I thank Robbie, I thank Maria, I thank all the providers that are on this Zoom webinar.
Can I say
Yes.
one last thing?
Yes, please.
So my page, so if, for those of you that have, people that are Latino, for example, or non-Latino, because my page, mariatrusa.org, is a healing page. Basically, there's a lot of healing tools there that I give to the community. I have a podcast that is a reflection of my life after the book. So since I was 55 until now, I have so many reflection of how I'm living my life and how I deal with the darkness and the issues that come in my life. And that the idea was that this could be a healing tool for other people. So I would recommend that they go there or the page, Yo Digo No Más.
We will send it all out. Again, I want to thank Westchester County, the Westchester County Board of Legislators, and Cuddy and Fader. It's been a real honor to work with you. Tanika, your words were beautiful and moving and so important that we really start partnering with the for-profit business sector. These are not nonprofit issues. These are not issues that happen to certain people and not others. They happen to lawyers, they happen to accountants, they happen to rich people, they happen to low-income people, Black people, white people, everywhere in between. And we really have struggled a bit, to be honest, to bring the for-profit sector on board in discussing these issues. But nothing's ever going to change unless we have every aspect of our society informed. And I just really look forward to working with you again, Tanika and Cuddy and Fader and everyone else on this to, again, everybody has to say no more, not just the nonprofit sector, and the government sector. So thank you for being a great partner. We
Thank
all
you.
look forward to working with you in the future, and thank you for setting the standard for other businesses, and thank everyone for that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I would like to really close. I have to tell you, first and foremost, I am absolutely humbled and honored to be in the presence of all of you, and Maria, for you sharing your story, and Robbie, for you providing us with expertise and guidance. It's paramount that these informational sessions take place, and inside and outside the workplace. I'm a big advocate for causes that are extremely important, especially for our young people, our children. Um, so I am just thankful, and I'm happy to be a part of MPW, and you can always call on me for any kind of support that you need. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Maria.
you.
Maria, you good? You okay?
Oh, yes.
Okay.